Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just go back to a question I posed, a rhetorical question I posed in my opening statement. Everyone in the panel before us, with the exception of Mr. McKay, let me just ask you a question. Is there any idea that you have at this point that would stop that leak from occurring in the Gulf of Mexico? Is there something you could share with us this morning that has not been done or tried that will bring a rapid conclusion to this? We know BP doesn't have that idea. Do any of the rest of you?
We've provided our experts to assist, Congressman, and I'm not aware of any ideas that beyond those that have been employed or that we've
No ideas have been suggested that have been taken up. Now, again, with everyone, with the exception of Mr. McKay, we know that BP has not been to the White House to talk to the President. Have any of the rest of you had conversations with the White House about the management of this situation in the Gulf? Mr. Tillerson? That's an affirmative answer?
I've had very brief conversations.
With the President himself or with his advisors?
Both.
Any of the rest of the gentlemen?
I've had a very brief conversation, but not with the President.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. A week ago, we went down to the Gulf and had testimony on a field hearing on oversight and investigations. We heard from two of the ladies who lost husbands on the rig. Mr. McKay, you were present at our first hearing on oversight and investigations. I didn't get a bit of information that day from yourself, Transocean, Halliburton, and the blow-up protector manufacturer was here. I learned a lot more from those two ladies, talking about emails they'd had with their husbands, phone calls they'd had with their husbands, discussions they'd had with their husbands back home when they came home for visits. And it seemed to be there was a lot of concern about things that were happening on the rig. Now, I've never worked on a deep water rig. Have any of you worked on a rig?
Not a deep water rig, but I worked on rigs earlier in my career.
Well, let me just ask you a question. Is that unusual? I mean, you know, I go home and complain about Mr. Markey a lot. But is this unusual to have that level of anxiety that these gentlemen were sharing with their wives about the safety conditions on an offshore rig?
Well, Congressman, I haven't looked at their testimony in detail, so I can't comment directly to that. As I commented, clearly there were some things going on with this well in the days and hours prior to the loss of control that we're interested to understand, and it's incomplete at this point.
Let me ask
you
a question.
I can't really say. Now, what I would say that well control is part of drilling. That's what drilling operations are about. You are trying to drill into the forces of Mother Nature and hold that back in a controlled fashion until you can then secure it. And so it is common to be dealing with well-controlled issues on a well in a routine manner. And the reason you have the well design and the layers of redundancy and all the safety equipment and the training is so you can deal with those. It is not uncommon to take a gas kick in a well and have to circulate that kick out in a controlled fashion and restabilize the well so you can continue your operation. To do that, you have to have good wellbore integrity and good equipment and people that know what they're doing. And that's why in my testimony I said, when you have those things, you can deal with well-controlled issues and maintain the integrity of the well and not lose the control of the well and have what's happened out there.
Have any of you ever ceased operations on a well because it was difficult to control, or you didn't feel like you had control?
Yes.
The answer is yes? So that does happen?
Certainly our people have, yes.
And who would generally make that call? Would it be in the case here, would it be Transocean or would it be BP? Would it be the owner of the platform or the driller?
Well, we as the owner of the well or the operation would make that decision, and depending on what the severity of the issue was and what was at stake, it would be made by a line manager somewhere in the drilling organization, but there have been at least one instance that came all the way to my level.
Let's see. Mr. Mulva, let me ask you a question, because in your testimony you talked about natural gas and the use of natural gas as one of those bridge fuels to the future. And yet, of course, we can extract a lot of natural gas on land where it's not an issue with drilling a mile down in the Gulf. But we also have issues of where that drilling is occurring, because now it's occurring closer and closer to civilization, and sometimes right on top of civilization. Mr. Tillerson mentioned the loss of the public trust with the energy industry. What are you doing to create the best practices so that people on land who are nearby to the gas drilling operations can have the comfort that their safety is protected, that they're not being exposed to benzene and hexane, that the fracking fluid is not going to contaminate their water wells? How are you taking a leadership role in the industry to be certain that those things are being handled appropriately?
Well, we have a great deal of experience as a company and as an industry, and we share those practices. But it all goes back to fundamentally how you plan and design and execute and complete and drill those wells. Also, it's most important how you develop the infrastructure. So as you develop the gas and you bring it to the marketplace, that's done through the infrastructure and the pipelines in a way that's very secure and safe. And we really feel that by doing this in a proper way, meaning the plan and design, that and we have many, many decades of experience that this can be done. And there's nothing really that unique from a technological point of view of our ability as an industry to develop the gas resources, whether you call them unconventional or conventional resources, that can be developed in North America. It's a tremendous resource. Our country is blessed with natural gas. It's not just a transition fuel, it's an integral part of the energy supply that we're going to need for our society and for our economy.
Well, I may have some additional questions for you on that issue, and I would appreciate you working with our office so that we can be confident of those best practices, because I'll just tell you, in my neighborhoods, it may not be as secure as you think. Now I'll yield back, Mr. Chair.
We thank the gentleman. The chair recognizes the chairman of